Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into the Cloud Native FM podcast. And today we are covering a new tool in the CNCF Sandbox category. Agenda is how deploying machine learning models from, let's say, Jupyter notebooks to production is a complex and fragmented process. Engineers often struggle with inconsistent packaging mechanisms, forcing them to repackage models multiple times, meaning slowing down development and increasing the risk. In this episode, we will be discussing why ML deployment is still a challenging, how KitOps standardizes packaging, deployment, and tracking, and how organization can benefit from DevOps inspired approach to ML with my guest, the co-founder and the CTO of JOZU and the co-creator of the project called KitOps. Thank you very much, Gorkem Ercan, for joining us on the Cloud Native FM for the very first episode.
For having me. I'm the CTO of JOZU, and as you mentioned, KitOps is a project that we have kicked off, and which has been recently accepted to CNCF as an as a sandbox project. What KitOps does is it actually builds on top of the OCI standard. And as you know, OCI is the standard between the Docker images, containers, and all that, right? So we built on top of the OCI standard. We defined a packaging format called OCI, a packaging format which is an OCI artifact that we called Modelkits. And the interesting thing about Modelkits is it can package your models, but it can also package your data sets, your code, your documentation. Essentially, think of it as a kit that you put together for your AI ML projects. And that's where the name actually comes from. It's a kit of things that comes together. The OCI artifacts has very interesting properties. One of them is you can store them on an OCI registry, and everyone actually has an OCI registry or has access to OCI registry. So you're not actually introducing a new infrastructure to be able to manage your models. But also, because they are OCI, they are like Docker images. They are immutable. So once you associate a model and the data together, you can always go back and find the correct data that has, trained your model with, or you can always go back and find the correct configuration. So the hustle of keeping the records for a very, very long time is actually just naturally part of the OCI, the way that OCI works. And there are other advantages that you can have because OCI is content addressable storage, which means that we don't actually store your blobs multiple times. We actually store them once and then just reference them behind the scenes. So there are advantages to storage and so on and so forth. If you're using the same data set for multiple models, for instance, your data set is in reality stored once, but to you it looks like, oh, you have a data set for every model kit. So there, one of the things that we thought was when we started doing our own ML work was there wasn't enough standards that the tools would adhere to so that there was interoperability. One of the biggest challenges on the MLOps space is fragmentation, right? It's like you have one tool that does something really, really well and you want to use it, but then once you use that tool, the output is not compatible with the next tool that you want to use. So we kind of tried to standardize on something that was already standard and available, so that it would essentially foster the innovation quicker. Another thing that we thought about was we saw how much the data science teams struggled with Docker images, because with Docker images, you actually have other software concerns that the data scientist needs to be aware of. And the DevOps teams, on the other hand, are used to getting Docker images. They're not used, like the software teams deliver Docker images, but the data science teams, if you treat them as software teams, now they're trying to build Docker images for the ML models that they have generated or trained. So one of the things that we wanted to do is to create a separation of concerns as well. So the model kits do not have any of the concerns that you would normally have with Docker images. You are only storing artifacts that are related to models. As I said, models, data, configuration, and you're handing off the model kit to the DevOps team. And since model kits are OCI images, it's very easy for a DevOps team to create a Docker image from a model kit, or just use the model kit directly to the stream it or download it at the start of inference engines or whatever that they need to do to take it to the production. So it kind of separates the concerns of the data science teams with the concerns of the DevOps and development teams from each other. So I think it provides a very nice flow for that kind of organizations.
Absolutely. That seemed very resonated as well, because I think right now, as you mentioned during the conversation, is right of there is inconsistency is being everywhere, uh, from the start to the finish of the AI inference, kind of AI driven development, what we like to call it. So usually when you work with the development, DevOps and data scientist team, they work with their own domains. So previously, DevOps, developer and ops know, and they have been working for ages to operate within the software delivery cycle. But the data scientists team are now completely newer to them. So sometimes there, if you ask them, "Oh, are you production ready?" They tell you, "Yes, we are production ready. Give us a machine of 2000 GB of RAM or something like that, and then we have ready to do." But that is not we like to what DevOps means for ready for the production. We mean some artifact, some binary, some script that I want to deploy it in a different environment. That is not what where you actually have been developed. So that is missing piece, and that's where the lot of challenging some companies, some or enterprises, and some open source projects have been facing. When they move their stuff around, there is inconsistency with where the stuff is running, and sometimes you don't have GPUs instance running on that machine, and when you deploy something on the production server, you hit some corner cases. We have solved those for the application developer, but for data scientists, we don't have any packaging mechanism. If you ask your data scientist to write a Docker file, then build up an image, tag your image, deploy into the Docker hub, then push the image. Yes, but that is not their job. They are here to for the business use cases, to have some AI capabilities to be embedded in their business processes. So we are asking so much more for them. And this tool that we actually talking about today is one of those that is actually giving us, you just need to forget about all these major pieces in the software delivery. KitOps can solve for you. So you can offload these things to KitOps by layer. And I think when the OCI becomes OCI is now becoming some sort of a standardization within the image and runtime specification for the containerization we have seen. And as you mentioned, if we have been using, let's say, AI workload for the containerization type of load, we've seen some project have been developing to deploy your AI and ML workflow as containers. So we can use the leverage of OCI format. We can package dataset configuration, code, secret within the one layer. And then you open up the layer, you have different layers of each inside. Let's say if I'm a developer, I need to understand what configuration has been put on for this package. Oh, I can look at the OCI layer, find the information I need, and then I do with my next step, that is deployment in the production server. So it's a very resonated, like you take the approach of what's already in the industry, let's reuse it and repurpose it, but for the usability of the AI and the machine learning. So that's a really nice piece to heard about. But I want to know, listen from you today, as when it actually, how you actually come up with this approach, how long actually this project is in the building phase, and what was the initial problem your team were facing that end up with the implementation or execution of a project that are we talking about today, that is KitOps.
Yeah. So we actually faced this problem ourselves, right? So when we started working on JOZU, one of the first things that we were trying to do is to be able to train ML models for every customer and refresh these models, multiple models, with the incoming customer data. That meant that we needed to have pipelines, we needed to have evaluation pipelines, drift protection and all of that. And we were trying to do the implement our packaging, one of the things that we noticed was, okay, so like I can put things to S3 buckets, I can do this, and it's like all of them felt like we had to like make compromises on the way, which one of our challenges was because the data was always coming in, and the data sets were snapshots of essentially a live data. We wanted to be able to make the association with the data set and the training immutable, and we could naturally track it. I mean, we have seen since then we have seen customers who actually track those sort of relationships in Excel sheets, which is, well, I suppose it works when you don't have too much volume, but when you are trying to do it for multiple customers, multiple data, and ML models, then it gets really messy. So that was the problem that we were facing. We were trying to do that. So as we go along, we tried to build something, and it was a little bit hand wavy, but it was working. But one of the things that we noticed was it's like we could actually just make this much easier on ourselves if we came up with a packaging that actually carried all this data with us on every part of the pipeline. Like you start with the data set and then you push the data set to an OCI registry. And the next step is it gets trained and then you push the data set and the model to the OCI registry and so on and so forth. So as the model kit moves through the pipeline, you have a history of the model kit, but you're also adding new parts to it as you move on. But then because it is an immutable package, you always have the history, but also the relationship. So we started implementing that actually a year ago, and we did our first release in March of last year. So KitOps is essentially a year old to the date. I think we released our first release at 9th of March, so it's like a year and 5 days as we are recording this. So the project is about a year old. From the get-go, our goal was always to move the project to a open source foundation for open governance, in addition to the open being an open source project. It's licensed under Apache 2 license, so it's very standard, I suppose, license for this kind of thing. So yeah, like it started from trying to address a problem of ours, and then we thought that, hey, you know what? Let's try to share it with the rest of the world.
Really, every time I came up with some time of stories within the CNCF Sandbox projects. So that similar story has been here of all the time. Like you have started something, you see a value after it, you see this is work for us. It's a production proof with another team. Why not we can show it to the world and see if that's the same problem they have been facing and the solution, or they're looking for the similar what we have developed internally, and end up being incubated into the Sandbox project. And now we have seen a wonderful adoption. Some very, very good companies, some major enterprises are now actually being backed up by the KitOps project. That's very resonated. But I kind of recap on the, and I will ask, I will ask Gorkem to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at the road, like the journey of the project, as he mentioned, is started in 2024 as a CI/CD action or a kit dev to start a LLM locally from a model kit. So that's, I think, the initial release of 2024 was back then. And then in Q2 2024, I think the second kind of a release, like you have 2x faster model kit packaging, and it support LoRa and RAG, and also its support for optimized local storages. And I think in Q3, it has some unknown unpack dash unfilter to selectively unpack only what's needed. So what was that? Like what is, where it's come from, how it's originated, and what is this flag is doing?
Yeah, the filter flag. Yeah.
Yes, filter.
Yeah, so the filter flag is very interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, right, as you move along your pipeline, you're adding parts of new parts to your model kit. Like you start with your data set, you add parameters, you add model weights, and so on and so forth. And when you are using the model kit, you do not really want to download a huge data set if you're just going to use the model weights, or if you do not want to just download all the parameters or all the code if you're just going to use the data set. Or you can actually store multiple data sets, for instance, one for evaluation, one for training, and so on and so forth. You just want to download and unpack the one that you need. So the filter actually allows you to do that. So when you are using the unpack command, you can say, unpack me only the data set which from this path. So it basically says, okay, unpack me the training data, or unpack me the evaluation data, or unpack me only the model but nothing else. Unpack only the README file, which is something that you can do. You can then unpack the README file only. So it kind of gives you a flexibility on in which parts of the model kit that you want to download and unpack into your system. So think of the advantages during a development pipeline or AI ML pipeline, where you have like, oh, now you want to do evaluation. Obviously, you only want the model and the evaluation data set and not the training data set. But then in the next step, you're doing experiments with different parameters. And at that point, you're like, oh, I don't want to download the data set, but I want to download the different parameter set, and so on and so forth. So that also gives you options on the CI/CD pipeline to use different parts of the same model kit for different purposes.
Yes, absolutely. And as with the upstream adoption, or what we call it, the expanded growth of the agentic AI schemas or agentic AI methodologies, that is quite to be a very, very uh, great opinionated approach to have. You can unpack the things you are looking for, because usually you have
Yeah.
millions and trillions of data, and you just want to need a subset of the model that you can fetch it out, and you can actually ask more
Yeah.
question, and you can actually redirect the output to some other stream and then get the value back out of it as well. So that's
Yeah.
very resonated as well. And going
Yeah.
forward with
And
the roadmap, yes, go ahead.
yeah. Right. And if you think about model kits today, like you can actually like store things like prompts into it as well. If you have prompt templates, you need, well, first of all, you should have prompt templates. And if you have prompt templates, you can actually, model kits are flexible enough to store that as well. So uh, with agentic AI, prompt templates is a big part of it, right? So you can actually use the prompt templates in such a way that you are able to do, again, experimentation and evaluation through by providing through a model kit.
And going with the our roadmap with the project and Q4, I think you have to tell us, like, is currently, as of we speaking, and tons of congratulations to your team that for acceptance within the CNCF as a sandbox project. And I think it started last year or this year. I think we have
Yeah.
this, the request to us submitted, I think last year, but
Yeah.
acceptance happening, I think it's just 2 weeks from now. Like, it's just happening, I think last month or beginning of this month as well.
Yeah,
But another
we were part of the February batch of projects that were
acceptance.
accepted. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. So it's being going to be very fast. Like as you mentioned, we just actually, it's, you are actually celebrating the 1 year anniversary in this month, or as of
this month.
March.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this month. So being a very
yeah,
1 year old project and then it's
yeah,
submitted in the CNCF, we usually have a very steeper roadmap to accomplish, because they have different orders like sandbox, incubation, graduation, and
yeah,
it's always takes some time to fill in all the requirements. So
yeah. And
it's been,
Sandbox gets a lot of attention. I mean,
yes,
we applied for Sandbox during KubeCon in Salt Lake City in November, I think. That was November last year. And there were over 10 projects that applied with together with us at this almost at the same time. So Sandbox has a lot of attention, and then there's a limited number of people who are trying to assess the projects.
yes, absolutely. And I think the sandbox is a matrix that let your team know that you are building some very important stuff. Keep on doing it as well, because now the community is backing up with this project as well. And other cool thing I need to learn from you as well, because I'm looking at the roadmap of the project. So it's began working now. Your team and within the CNCF, you are working inside to building up some specification for standardizing the AI packaging system.
Yeah,
And that's, I believe, AI. It's a team within the CNCF, and your team has been involved in it. So can
yeah.
you let us know if this happen, how, how long would it take to be a there a specification or standardization for AI
Right.
specific AI packaging system?
So, I mean, the draft specification should be available very, very quickly. Um, uh, as you said, this is a bunch of individuals and companies that are interested in the subject coming together, and we are working on a specification. The specification um, is about an OCI artifact, just like model kits, and it has almost 80-90% similarities with the model kits. So for the KitOps project, that the adoption of the new specification is something of a natural progression of things. But as you said, the first thing is the specification needs to be finalized and so on and so forth. So what we are doing right now is we are trying to create another sandbox project for the specification itself. Once the project is in place, we're going to publish the draft specification and talk with different stakeholders on the CNCF ecosystem. This can be teams like Cryo, Containerd, Kubernetes that actually do the runtimes, or it can be projects like Harbor, Notary, where they provide OCI package management, OCI registries, and so on and so forth. So, and once we gather enough feedback, and once we gather enough feedback from the community at large, we will declare the first release of the specification. And as with the specification, we want to provide, some helpers like libraries and whatnot that helps you build tools on that specification. But for the KitOps project specifically, we want to be the reference implementation of the specification, meaning that if you are using KitOps, you are using the specification. Kind of thing. We think we won't be changing the functionality of the KitOps that much because the specification is, as I said, 80-90% in line with what KitOps does today. There will be changes to naming things and so on and so forth, I'm sure, but that we can handle relatively easily.
Yes, absolutely.
So as for timing, it will take a couple of months perhaps for the sandbox project to be established, and then it's very hard to predict how much feedback and how fast we will be able to gather from the community. But I'm expecting around summer we should be very close to like the draft should be out, and we should be moving closer to the spec release.
That's wonderful news. I think they last year have written down some AI white paper as well. I think they have published during the Salt Lake City.
There were multiple actually. Like there is one security related one. I think that one was the first one, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong about that, so don't quote me on it. But yes, there are multiple white papers that has been published or in the works by the AI working group at CNCF, and they cover really interesting pieces. There are like parts about runtimes, parts about observability as well, which I actually find very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely looking forward to this space as well. And when this will be out, I will definitely let our viewers knows about these announcement as well. But if I'll try to recap about the project, and then I will ask you final question, like what's in the horizon coming up in this year, and also how people can meet you at the KubeCon happening 1st April to 4th April of 2025. But if I look at the KitOps as a project, it can provide data scientists can use KitOps CLI to package all project component into a model kit, and they have a kit file similar to the Docker file that defines the structure and simplifies the version control for the entire package.
Right.
And this also ensure all.
Yeah, and the data scientists can also, or anyone can also use the PyKitOps library,
Yes.
which is a Python library. And if you're using the Python library, naturally, you don't need to use the kit file, or kit file is optional. You can still use it because kit file is basically just a declarative way of saying what to package. So if you're packaging through Python, then you can you don't need to give that declaratively. You can give that programmatically to the library. So, but at least from our observations, data science teams prefer the Pi KitOps bindings over directly using the Kit CLI.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning the I miss it. I definitely add the link in the description so people can check out as well. And also the next high level advantage of KitOps based approach is that you can version control and CI/CD. And the model kit is a version control in a repository alongside the application code, ensuring a unified development flow. And I like this flow because you can use the some sort of GitOps principle if you package something inside the Git repository. Let's say you have a new version of your dataset comes up, or you have a new version of the model comes along. You have version control in the Git repo. Every time there's a new changes has been detected, you can use GitOps principle. Basically, there's a actual and desired state within the Argo CD kind of capabilities. So you basically you do the continuous reconciliation of the things has been changing for your model. So that's you can actually leverage it, the same ecosystem of the tooling the CNCF has. And also, as I mentioned, GitOps work well with existing containerization technologies like Docker for deploying model kits and allows SRE teams to use familiar DevOps tool to deploy for deployment and production like environment for Kubernetes, or you can use GitHub Actions or Jenkins, Circle CI, or Azure DevOps. So basically, the good approach is that there's nothing a new category of a newer system of a tool or newer ecosystem for the data scientist, but you are actually leveraging data scientists to be used the same existing ecosystem of the tool that everybody using. So meaning the development, the onboarding for the data scientists would be a lot easier compared to the if you are introducing brand new tool chain for their need, considering their requirement as well. And also you have a KitOps. You also have a KitOps CLI, so that people can use to run it locally or try out or test out something as well. And good.
So
Yes.
one of the your summary kind of make me think about one of our very early adopters. So I cannot tell their name yet because they're a government agency that has obligations for compliance and security, obviously. So one of the first things they did was they loved model kits because it was able to deliver them something that they can use with their tools. They actually use model kits, but they on top of it, because model kits are OCI artifacts, they are signing them. So they do signature exchanges and so on and so forth. One of the things that they did early on in their pipelines was being able to sign them and attach attestations to these model kits, but also they have a sort of a policy management piece where they check these attestations and sign and check whether the model kit has been signed and has not been compromised. But they took this a little bit further, as you mentioned, because that part of the secure supply chain is what you are used to in DevOps, right? The DevOps teams, especially with the compliancy and security concerns, they implement these things and they use existing tools like Notary, Cosign for doing this. What they did interestingly is they're a Backstage user. So they implemented these Backstage golden templates for the data science teams. So now the data science teams can actually start a new ML project, which comes with KitOps built into it. So once they start the project, they magically are part of the SSC as well, because the KitOps is there for them to, once they are done with their experimentation, KitOps kicks off and takes their ML models, packages them into model kits, and data scientists didn't really have to do anything for it, but then they actually get the rest of the secure supply chain for free, because those are just built for DevOps purposes already. They are already there, from adding attestations to all the way to checking them. So it was a really interesting use case that they were able to do this and hook into their existing secure supply chain controls very easily with model kits.
Speaking offline as well, because since you are using the OCI kind of an approach, you have the full leverage to use the existing ecosystem of the tools. Like as you mentioned, you can sign your pipeline, sign your images on the fly with tools like cosign. You can use GitOps controller-based approach or declarative approach or reconciliation approach using GitOps principle. And some companies need their ephemeral environment to test their model before they actually go in some real world for production use cases. You can use tools like vCluster to spin it up the ephemeral environment and then see if that's the things are working properly, then the PR will be merged and then you will be going into the production. So that's the beauty of the cloud native tool chain that you could leverage. And that's why CSC, and I was asking you that if I look at the website today, there are so many companies are using it. And also, as you mentioned, a lot of the government tool chains are also being a part of this transitioning phase, moving their models to the OCI based approach. But just before I let you go, what are the competitor or alternative approaches exist compared to the KitOps, and where do you see the KitOps is actually being the most beneficial compared to the other, and which category the KitOps you think works best for the people who are listening to us?
I mean, there are different approaches that has been like S3 buckets has been around forever, right? I mean, and today many companies are using that. There are other tools like DVC, which at some point we tried to use as well. They try to they do a very Git centric approach. So I think for model kits, our focus has always been to make it easy for the DevOps, the application engineers, and the data scientists to support production. So we are a very production-focused tool. The JOZU, the company, is also very production-focused company. Like we the way that we see AI is, unless you are able to use it on production, it is not really valuable. So our goal has been to get you to production securely and fast. So I think for those situations, if you are looking for secure and fast, that's I guess where I think you should go with KitOps. There are so many things happening in the market. There may be other ones that I'm actually forgetting about. There are other approaches that are based on OCI, but leverage the OCI images rather than OCI artifacts, which only solves the end of the problem, but not the beginning. So you're still dealing with OCI images. For a complete solution, I guess today KitOps is probably the leading open source project that is pushing the envelope. For JOZU, we built on tools on top of KitOps. So we do have a product called JOZU Hub, which you can use on-prem or as a SaaS as well, for basically for working with model kits. Well, but there are a few very nice features that are associated with JOZU Hub. For instance, one of the things is once you have a model kit, you need to repackage that as a OCI image or Docker image, as kids call it. So JOZU Hub actually just does that for you behind the scenes. We do automated conversions, model scanning, security scans, evaluations, and that sort of stuff. Like the standard stuff that you want with your models, and is built into JOZU Hub, so you can get a very nice integration into the rest of your pipelines.
I'm just recapping what you actually just said. If I try to make my four, like if I to try to pick some tools around AI, who they can give me some deploying and packaging kind of capabilities. So I will try to use these four as my basic categories. I will look for a use solution as a vendor neutral or open in or having some I can easy to use without any paying for some companies. So that's my checklist
Yeah.
number one, and KitOps actually get into this checklist. Next, I want to track and package AI and MLOps project, all the artifacts, code, dataset configuration together. So that's another check pass by the KitOps.
Yeah.
And the third category is like I want to work with very large model and data set. That's where a lot of the tool chain is missing this piece,
Yeah.
but the KitOps is passing this check again. And another, that's my favorite piece because I work with the DevOps team a lot in my recent years. I want to have capability that can be converted automatically into a runnable project. I don't think so. There's many solution can check this list pass, but KitOps is one of those that can be converted automatically into a runnable project. So these are my four checklists to have AI kind of a solution who can actually pass those categories. But I think, as you mentioned, like I think the only if I go and looking for the solution, go into the website and see how many companies are using it. I think that is my proven checklist that yes,
Yeah.
it's been in the production. Government sector are using it. Many very wonderful world organization firms are using it. I might to take it very seriously or start investigating what problem it try to solve for me today. But thank you very much. For Gorkim, it's been great pleasure talking to you on this episode. But before I let you go, tell us about the company, a little bit of details like what JOZU is doing currently, what customer base it has.
So JOZU's goal is to help companies, enterprises get the best more out of AI by getting them to production faster. One of the things is one of our current product is JOZU Hub, which is an experience layer on top of OCI for model kits. What it does is, as I mentioned earlier, it gives you a very specific view into your model kits, which lets you, differentiate between your models and see the contents of it. And we do have a built-in service that can convert a model kit into an OCI image that you can just run in the with one of our created inference engines. We use projects like VLLM, Llama CPP, depending on your choices, to run your run model kits, but essentially you don't really need to have to do anything for it. It just looks like a regular OCI image that you pull, which we on the back end create for you. Other things is there are built-in security checks that we run as part of JOZU Hub. One interesting thing is we run the security checks and then attach an attestation to your model kit, which means that if you want to check if your model kit has passed the security check or not, you can actually do it before deployment at your Kubernetes cluster, for instance, because those are attached attestations to the OCI images. Stuff like that. In the future, we will be adding more capabilities, not to JOZU Hub only as well, but there is a new product coming out of JOZU as well. So what we want to be able to do is to enable more, I guess, agentic AI use cases with model kits, things like prompts and so on and so forth. So this is the next product that will be coming out of JOZU. But if you want to see where we are and how and learn more about JOZU, jozu.com is our website.
And you are looking for a simpler, concise, and straightforward solution for the MLOps workflow that will help you to reduce complexity, faster time to market, improve your consistency, model versioning and rollback, AI A/B testing and experimentation, model governance and explainability. Remember, KitOps, it's your solution and maybe the preferable way to go. And this KitOps project allows organization to leverage their existing DevOps, cloud-native toolchain and pipeline for MLOps task, leading to whatever I call it before, reduce complexity, faster time to market, improve consistency, and simplified tracking throughout the ML model lifecycle. With that, thank you very much for listening to this conversation.